Hello, and welcome to the 2025 February DAC training on accommodations. My name is Devin Avery, and I'm a program consultant in the Office of Assessment and Accountability. This training is one in a series meant to prepare DACs and BACs for the upcoming Spring State Test Administration. Today, we are going to talk about ordering accommodated print materials, required training, the accommodations environment, English learner or EL accommodations, and resources. Accommodated print material orders are required in Pearson Access Next. There are kits for Braille and large print. Please note that the ordering window is between March 24 and June 6. There will not be any specific shipping windows for accommodated materials. All accommodated materials will be submitted via an additional order. Those step-by-step instructions can be found on the Pearson Access online support document. We do have a limited number of paper tests available for special circumstances only. These paper test kits must be obtained with KDE approval. Those cannot be ordered through Pearson Access Next. Any paper test kit requests made to KDE need to be done using the paper test request form. Annual training is essential for staff to understand their role in providing accommodations and meeting regulatory requirements. There are links in this slide to the assessment regulations training resources available, as well as for the regulations themselves. Any violation of the inclusion regulation is automatically a violation of the administration code regulation. The testing environment, whether on an online platform or a paper test, can impact how an accommodation is provided. The important takeaway is that the rules and regulations that govern accommodations do not change. A scribe still can only record what the student instructs the scribe to write. A reader still can only read the words as written on the test. Nothing changes in what accommodators and accommodations may do or provide. What changes is the medium in which the students and accommodators interact with the test. Some of the accommodations that may look different are a scribe, human reader, stop the clock, and a calculator. This is not an exhaustive list. To know exactly how these accommodations can be provided on a specific test, it is imperative to read the documentation for the test being proctored. For the scribe accommodation, the technology checkbox is not required on the student plan. The scribe accommodation is always a one-to-one accommodation. Scribes can type for a student if a student is unable to type for themselves. All other rules surrounding the use of a scribe remain the same. Please note that a scribe may not read back a student's response to them unless that student also has a reader accommodation. The human reader accommodation can be administered in one-to-one or a small group of up to 4. If this accommodation is administered to a group of 4, the DAC or BAC may set up a read-aloud session. This will automatically assign students to the same form and create a proctor ticket for the person administering the accommodation. All other guidelines for readers still apply. The proctor test ticket is designed to print out a ticket for the proctor to use to log into their own device and be able to read to one or a group of 4 students without having to read from the student's computer screen. When the read aloud session is created, it will provide one proctor ticket per session. If a session contains multiple students, the ticket cannot be copied and used simultaneously with multiple proctors at the same time. However, the ticket could be used successively to test students. For example, a proctor could test one student and provide reading services in a one-to-one environment, and when finished, use the same ticket to test a group of 4 students who have similar accommodations. When using the proctor test ticket, please be aware of which ticket is being used to sign in. We advise printing the proctor test ticket on different colored paper. If a student takes the assessment using a proctor test ticket, it will not save or report their answers, so please be aware. The student's plan must indicate that they receive an online or text reader. If the online text reader box is checked, that is the mode of reader that should be used during state assessment. However, a human reader may correct a mispronunciation by a text reader if requested by the student. To turn on the text-to-speech functionality, two boxes must be checked, and detailed instructions are on the Kentucky portal. In a case where the technology is not available or fails, a human reader may be used in place of the online reader until the technology is available again. Additionally, a human reader may correct a skipped word or mispronunciation by the text reader if the student requests. Some students have an accommodation for stopping the clock due to medical concerns. KDE generally accepts this as a valid state testing accommodation. Directions for temporarily exiting TestNav 8, for example, to take a break or to move a student to another location before finishing the test, can be found on page 40 of the Test Administration Manual. If a student exits TestNav 8, either unintentionally or intentionally, before they complete their test, then the student's test must be resumed by the test administrator before the student can continue with that same test. DACs and BACs need to enable the online calculator functionality by setting a flag in PAN. Pearson has guidance regarding this process in the Kentucky portal, and this is also referenced in the online toolbox document. The online Desmos calculators are linked on this slide. These calculators are specific to parameters set for Kentucky and differ from the ones on the regular Desmos site. OAA encourages you to have students practice with these calculators during regular instruction and classroom assessment. Handheld or online calculators are an allowed accommodation only if the following conditions are met. The student's plan indicates a handheld calculator accommodation. The calculator is used in regular instruction, and the calculator is not prohibited in KDE's calculator policy, which is linked here. In some instances, a student with an IEP or 504 might use a device not listed on the approved calculator list. In this case, please submit a request via the calculator request form for permission to allow a student to use the device not included on the allowed list. An EL student may use accommodations in the state-required content assessments if they meet the criteria outlined on page 16 of the Inclusion of Special Populations Regulation. Accommodations may include a human reader, scribe, extended time, oral native language support, and use of a dictionary. All interpreters must complete the Administration Code and Inclusion of Special Populations Regulation trainings before a test session. Additionally, anyone not working in a certified position for the district must sign a non-disclosure agreement. Oral native language support can be provided in a group of up to 4 students if that is the only accommodation listed in the current PSP. Please note that the person providing services must also be able to actively monitor students while they are testing. Students who have additional accommodations, such as a scribe or dictionary, must be tested one-to-one. Dictionaries may be paper or electronic, but they must be word-to-word and not contain definitions or pictures. Internet capabilities must be disabled. AI or Google Translate may not be used for EL translation services in the administration of state assessments due to conflicts with 703 KAR 5:080, the Administration Code for Kentucky's Educational Assessment Program, and the 703 KAR 5:070, Inclusion of Special Populations in the State Required Assessment and Accountability Programs. The oral native language support with extended time accommodation referenced on page 18 of the Inclusion of Special Populations Regulation implies a human interpreter providing verbal translation and/or simplification of language. The use of dictionaries accommodation does allow an electronic version. However, it specifies a word-to-word translation without definitions, requires internet capabilities to be turned off, and prohibits translation of whole phrases and sentences. Additionally, the administration code requires accommodations provided during assessment to be consistent with 703 KAR 5:070, which does not provide for an electronic translation service. This regulation also prohibits reproducing secure test materials in any way, including by typing. AI tools process data inputs into their algorithms, which creates a breach of test security when secure test items are introduced into that database. This compromises the integrity of the assessment and violates confidentiality protocols. Here are links to some resources specific to accommodations. The online testing toolbox gives policies, accommodation guides, technology guides, and general tips and best practices. The practice tests include accommodated practice tests to give staff and students familiarity with the text-to-speech function and online calculator, and are highly recommended. The accommodation bookmarks and EL accommodation bookmarks are quick reference sheets for those providing accommodations. Finally, the paper test request and calculator request forms discussed earlier are also linked here for your convenience. The Kentucky Department of Education is seeking Kentucky educators to assist in several assessment-related tasks that will take place in 2025. Opportunities include science work with HUMRO to identify alignment of instructional practices to the assessment, range finding, standard setting, item development, and bias review for the KSA and AKSA, as well as an opportunity to participate in a committee to define the ELP exit criteria. The ELP exit criteria work is designed to identify new criteria for reclassifying EL students who take the alternate access. This will involve participating in virtual meetings to review data and discuss the language skills of students trying to exit from language assistance services. K through 12 and post-secondary educators, as well as community stakeholders interested in participating in the assessment, development, and review work are needed. A pool of candidates is being gathered for these critical steps and other supporting activities that will occur. A Google form will be shared with DACs to forward to qualified applicants. A large portion of this work will be accomplished virtually, and participants will receive a stipend. The 2025 February DAC hybrid question and answer session dates and locations are listed on this slide. There are in-person and virtual options available. If weather or other circumstances impact the in-person session, the Q&A session will be held online only. This is the agenda for the February DAC hybrid question and answer sessions. We have welcome and updates. We'll discuss the KSA, PAN, TestNav, have a break, discuss the AKSA, accommodations, high school test security, SDRR, and then we'll just have open floor for questions. The February DAC Q&A sessions will follow the same topics and timeframes at each location. This agenda will be followed. However, once an agenda item has no additional questions, the staff will move on to the next topic. Participants planning to attend should plan for attending the entire meeting. This is a list of the February DAC trainings available. Please note, since the live Q&A sessions will not include full presentations of content already covered in the recordings, DACs and BACs should be prepared for the Q&A sessions. You may be prepared by watching all or pertinent training videos on the administration of spring 2025. If you have any further questions, you may contact us at the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support at 502-564-4394 or email dacinfo@education.ky.gov. Thank you for joining me for this accommodations presentation for spring 2025.